Ubisoft has been in a massive rut. So rather than talking about, Ubisoft and the history and everything that's going wrong with them, let's talk specifically about Assassin's Creed Shadows. I've got a lot to talk about when it comes to this particular game because there is a lot going on that I feel like needs to be talked about, despite the fact that this singular game is apparently going to have an incredibly sore back from trying to carry the entire weight of Ubisoft on its shoulders somehow. How is it going to be able to do that? Let's see if we can actually try and find out or figure it out ourselves, because I sure as hell can't seem to do it. Because Assassin's Creed Shadow was originally supposed to launch in February of 2025. I'm pretty sure it must have tried to release sometime before then, but there was a February 20... Actually, no, yeah, it's supposed to release November of 2024. Then it got delayed to February 2025, and so everyone just kind of speculated, including myself, when I say everyone, just random people on the internet talking video games, that, hey, February is so stacked that if the game were to come out, the guys at Ubisoft, like the heads, would be able to say, the game came out in an incredibly busy period, and for that reason, that's why, Assassin's Creed Shadow didn't actually sell that well. And I thought, that seems like an incredibly ill-advised move, but hey, I'm not one to, barf on someone's pancake until they've actually served it and tried to give it to someone, sure enough. So the game was then delayed, as per this Games Radar article. Assassin's Creed Shadow, the delay is supposed to apparently learn from mistakes made from Star Wars Outlaws. But with that being said, Star Wars Outlaws only sold at most what we can guess is about roughly 1 million copies. So, and it was also poorly received by the audience and only received tepid reception from Critical Lens. So it really doesn't help matters that, hey, if you're going to learn lessons from that, it really does make me wonder what kind of lessons those are. So even though it was meant to launch to some extent in February of 2025, they've now moved the date to March instead to give themselves a little bit more breathing room. And I thought to myself, okay, fine, do whatever you need to. You have a full week, so they're gonna launch mid-March, and they've got a full week of sales before they hit the end of the financial year. So they're going to really stretching it to the last minute. So okay, let's think about things from a gameplay perspective. What do we think of when we think of gameplay in a Ubisoft game? We think of massive open world with way too many icons everywhere. And so Assassin's Creed Shadows, Ubisoft says it doesn't want to hold the player's hand too much with icons, so that you have to hire scouts and mark the world map for you. And you might think, okay, that seems like a cool idea. But now we come into the issues with regards to the idea of having an open world, having so many, markers and pointers in a single map, because why increase the amount of busy work in that case? Because you're now, it seems like, at least perceptionally from the way that I look at it, it seems like you're actually adding steps to do a thing and therefore making it longer to do. So it actually feels like there is actually some padding here. So like if you happen to find a location before your scouts, does that also get mapped as well? In which case, if you can find things yourself, why on earth would you ever want to use scouts to begin with? So yeah, Ubisoft is, sort of drip feeding information about the leading into the launch of Assassin's Creed Shadows in March. Like I said, this is also after the actual delay that they did. The devs are breaking down what to expect from the exploration. Basically, you're going to have to work a little bit harder to find your way around things. But the thing is, if you're making things harder in that way, why wouldn't you just do what you've always been doing? Because exploration is a fickle yet fancy thing. Yeah, it's cool not to have any markers at all. I feel like Elden Ring kind of did the open world idea way better than I feel like Ubisoft will ever be capable in doing. And even when I look back at Ubisoft's previous games that actually, did do that sort of thing well. I think of Far Cry 3, even though it's fairly similar to like the stuff we get now, but it felt, novel at the time, given that, not too many games were cranked out. They were fairly similar, if not exactly the same back then. But yeah, I just don't think that adding more busy work is such a great idea. And then you have the historical aspect of Assassin's Creed Shadows, because if there's one thing you do not want to diss when it comes to anything to do with real life, it's ideally fickle bits and pieces of history from countries that have a very sensitive history, let's put it that way. And so Ubisoft have to be incredibly careful with Japanese history, because Japanese history is a very fascinating thing to learn about and to talk to others about within a small circle, not really publicized in a way that seems incredibly insensitive. And like I said, that is a very sensitive thing. In fact, the risk of doing something like that is far greater than I feel like any reward that could possibly be offered through sales of a game or in any sort of monetary perspective. So Ubisoft have to be very careful when handling the setting with care, and it seems very poorly done at the moment, given that some of their marketing ploy for Assassin's Creed Shadows doesn't seem to be hitting, whether it be the race of the main character or the fact that one of the art pieces, was it an art piece? Something to do with a half-destroyed Torii Gate, which was the resemblance of a photo that was taken when the bombs dropped on Japan. And again, while I say that, keeping in mind, while this is a factual thing that has happened, it is not to minimize the fact that it was done incredibly poorly by the guys at Ubisoft when they used this piece of art as advertising material, and it just seems very sort of poorly done in terms of taste. And the fact of the matter is that even better is the fact that if they wanted to do Assassin's Creed in Japan, we already have a game that does that in the form of Ghosts of Tsushima. And the fact that the game is also getting a sequel that is coming out the same year as Assassin's Creed Shadows, I feel like there is some comedic, if not just straight up divine retribution with all of that kind of just going on at this point. And then there's this whole idea of having two main protagonists. So the only reason why we had two protagonists in Syndicate, for example, was because you would be able to play as a male or a female character. However, for some reason, you have to have two different characters because players wanted both stealth and combat, and you couldn't have both with one, which I'm just gonna sit there and watch for a second. Assassin's Creed 1 has stealth and combat. Assassin's Creed 2 has stealth and combat. Assassin's Creed Brotherhood has stealth and combat. Assassin's Creed Revelations has stealth and combat. Assassin's Creed 3 has stealth and combat. Assassin's Creed 4 has stealth and combat. I think I've made my point clear. Every Assassin's Creed game that has had a single character has had combat, has also had stealth, and at the same time, with all of that being said, they could do this with a single main character. You don't need to have two. The playstyle argument just doesn't stick. I feel like they're adding two main protagonists because they both need to be of different genders, and this kind of stems from what Assassin's Creed Syndicate started, that Assassin's Creed Origins had. Pretty much I think every Assassin's Creed after Syndicate had this idea of dual protagonists moving forward and have to be of two different archetypes, one being bustly muscly dude, aka the combat guy, and then the stealth chick, which, I mean, sure, I guess, but again, different sets of abilities don't really jive, given that you can have a strong main character that also is able to stealth through areas, because again, whatever you put into the world is an element that is added as part of the stealth. That's why we had jumping off of towers into hay bales in some of the original Assassin's Creed games. There's a reason why we could have Ezio, you could see like a group of people marching together in unison. You could just join that group of congregating individuals and not be detected whatsoever. Like, that can be done, and I don't know why Ubisoft just aren't really doing that. And even better is the fact that like I said, there's like little bits and pieces of content everywhere, but content is only as good as the reason it serves to be there. And why I think that Elden Ring does an exceptionally good job at doing the Ubisoft open world without doing a Ubisoft open world. You don't have a map, you are in a place, go and explore. Go north, find whatever you can find. Go south, find whatever you find. Go east, find whatever you find. Go west, find whatever you find. If you happen to find an underground dungeon that is just as big as actually the entire land that you can traverse from the starting of the game, then so be it. Do you find a kingdom in the sky that is also equally as big, similar to the way Zelda Tears of the Kingdom does it? Sure. But the thing is that Ubisoft open worlds have now been taken and done so much better by other games, by not having points of interest everywhere, not having a map where you can mark everything everywhere, and finding things yourself by you being the individual who is traveling to find places to do things to then move on from there. Firstly, I look at something like Genshin Impact. Then I look at something like Tears of the Kingdom. The last couple of mainline Zelda games that we got. We had Tears of the Kingdom. We also had Breath of the Wild. Yeah, those two in particular. And then you look at something like Elden Ring, which I feel like is the zenith or the I think peak amount of quality that you can expect to find in an open environment game where you can traverse wherever you like. But I feel like that can only be special for so long, and many games are going to try and copy that very idea. And again, everything has meaning. Whether some things are, there's lore behind everything. People make lore videos about everything that's happening. In fact, Ubisoft is not releasing games annually as much anymore. We haven't had a Tom Clancy game in a while after the absolute failure that was Breakpoint. We've only got 3 The Crew games, with Motorfest being the last one. As far as Assassin's Creed game goes, we didn't get one last year, but we're getting one this year. So again, games are not coming out yearly anymore. But it's also clear that they're not digging into their IP either. So Assassin's Creed Shadows could have been made with a bit more thought put behind it if only they had originally planned for a 2025 release. But again, there is not going to be any discussions that Assassin's Creed Shadows is going to be a good game this year. I think that everyone can universally agree that that will not be the case. And of course, even with previews coming through from game journalists and YouTubers, it seems clear that the game is still glitchy and buggy in places, and I feel like its final release is very much going to reflect that. So whether or not that's actually a positive thing or not, we have to pretty much wait and see. But until then, is Ubisoft actually going to exist as a company moving forward? How deeply are things going to change? I tried to focus as much as I could solely on Assassin's Creed Shadows, but many of the mistakes, news articles, and general history of Ubisoft is being reflected upon in the design, both in terms of its gameplay perspective, but also the elements and mechanics that we expect to see from an open world is from a Ubisoft game. But let me know what you guys think about all of this in the comments below. I'm doing a bit more sort of deeper dives into individual games that we are getting news about. The previous video that I made about Xbox's, as a platform, why are they there where they're there, and why we should expect to see them not really do particularly well, and kind of the negative implications they've put onto the industry. Same thing here with what is happening with Assassin's Creed Shadows. Should we expect it to be successful? I personally think no, if I'm being completely honest. And where does that leave Ubisoft after their critical failures of the past, as well as mistakes made previously? But with all of that being said, however, like I said, comment below whatever you like. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe to the channel. I'm aiming for 500 subs by the end of the year. And with all of that being said, I do upload every day, so I'll see you guys tomorrow.